Welcome. I want to welcome everyone today to our fall programming for Design on High Point Market. This is part of International Market Center's programming for the fall 2020 High Point Market, and we're excited that you can join us today. Today we have our topic, which is working with a coach. This is part 2 of a series featuring Gail Doby. Today it's featuring Gail. She'll be talking about Gail Doby Coaching and Consulting, and our other guest is Jody Cook, founder of Cook House Design. I'm Kim Porter, the Programming Manager, Senior Programming Manager for International Market Centers, and we want to welcome you. If you're looking for any additional CEU credits to see which showrooms might be open, our catalog connection, you can find all of that on our website, which is imchighpointmarket.com. And this is being recorded, so if you miss any part of it, you can join us later, and we would love to have you join us by Facebook or YouTube. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Gail and Jody.
All right, thank you so much. We're always delighted to work with IMC and help all the designers that are interested in the different programming that we bring. And today it's so easy for us to talk about this because it's something that, of course, I do almost every day. And it's really talking about coaching and how it fits in with your business. So I'm going to start off with Jody, who is one of my current clients. And I want you to just share where you currently are with your business, Jody.
Sure, I'm happy to, and I'm happy to be here. Hi, everybody. I am 4.5 years into my business. I started Cook Design House in February of 2016. And it's just me and one other senior designer, although we're currently hiring for another senior designer. So a small company, 4.5 years in, getting ready to grow and really needing somebody to kind of stand over and look over my shoulder while I make those growth moves and make sure I'm not making any mistakes. So, hence Gail and her team.
Mistakes, it's just the level of mistakes we make, right?
Right.
All right, so for any of you who are just listening today, feel free to type questions in the chat screen. I'll be watching that chat as well. And also just welcome, thank you for coming. And if you'd like to share where you're calling from or where you're dialing in from, that'd be great as well. So Jody, why did you end up hiring us or hire a coach in the first place?
I was at a point where I didn't know what I didn't know. I never intended to own my own business. I'm a business school dropout. I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I was planning to get a degree in business, and I was 12 credits away from graduating, had kind of a quarter life crisis, changed my major to interior design, and away we went. But the fact is, I knew I should be looking into my financials of my business, and I just wasn't. I didn't know what to be looking for. In retrospect, not looking back, I didn't have the right team in place. I didn't have a bookkeeper who was working with me regularly. I didn't have a great CPA who I was checking with regularly. I knew my financials needed help. I just didn't know enough to know what to do. And that's really what started me down the road of looking for a coach. And I should add, we're a residential design firm out of Denver, Colorado. And we work in luxury residential design. But the biggest reason that I sought out a coach was that I was really tired of being stressed out about money. You know, I started the business, and from the time I started it, I was constantly worried about money. You know, it's just such a stressor for a small business. And,
Sure.
And if those of you out there own your own interior design firm, you know that even large or small, you're always worried about, can I make the rent? Can I make the payroll? You know, do I have cash flow? And all of those issues. Money is a huge driving force behind what we do. And that's really what caused me to seek out a coach. And I interviewed a couple. When I called Gail's team, I just happened to connect with the person on the other end, and she was saying everything that I was thinking. So it felt like a good fit. I'd also come across Gail's name a couple other times from existing clients of hers. So it seemed like all roads pointed back to Gail. I even called a local business coach who was referred to me from one of my industry partners. And he said, you know, interior design is such a specific industry. I think you'd be better off with a design specific coach instead of me. let me do some asking around and see if I can get a name for you. And the name he came back with was Gail. So it was kind of like, Jody, stop fighting it. Just call the woman. So I did.
About 10 times. Yeah.
And here we are. Yeah.
Fire her already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the things that we do differently is we are very much focused on the financial aspects of the business and how it connects with your personal life and what you're trying to accomplish personally. I just remember some of the conversations we had way back at the beginning when you were talking about it just, stress over paying your mortgage and having a big rent to pay, and then not knowing should you hire and could you afford to hire and how do you go about hiring, all those different things. So those are some of the things I remember from way back in the beginning of our conversations.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's nice to have somebody actually look at your financials who knows what they're looking for and what to look for, and to say, no, you can't afford it, and here's how, or here's what you need to do to be able to afford it. That's invaluable to me. I mean, one of the biggest reasons that I like having a coach and I wanted a coach is to have that person looking over my shoulder and kind of sitting on my shoulder and saying, yes, this is good. No, that's not a good idea, and here's why. Or have you considered doing this? It's basically the angel sitting on your shoulder, just watching out and just making sure you're not going to make any catastrophic mistakes, at least.
Well, I remember one of the things we first talked about was that one client who was kind of bullied you into some low pricing. You want to share a little bit about that story?
Sure. So Gail does what you call a VIP day, and it's where you kind of bring all of your. I joke it's when she looks in your underwear drawer. She sees the good, bad, and everything in between. And it's scary to kind of expose all of the inner workings of your business and your financials to somebody who at that point is a virtual stranger. It's a big leap of faith. And during that leap of faith, it kind of came up that I had a design agreement in place that was different than all of my other design agreements. And it was a really low markup. And I had agreed to it in an ill-advised moment, is basically the best way to put it. I was bullied by my client to agree to a lower rate than I've ever agreed to before or since. And Gail pointed it out to me and did some quick math for me and showed me that alone would have absolutely detrimental results to my bottom line by the end of the year if I kept on with that agreement. And so Gail says everybody cries at one point during the video day, and that was when I cried. Because I had to go back and tell the clients, I'm sorry, but I can't do what I said I could do because it's impossible. So I had to go back and renegotiate the contract, and it was really hard. And it was something where I definitely needed somebody in my corner telling me what to say, what to do, kind of what I can do and how much I could negotiate before it stopped making financial sense. Because the reality is I signed an agreement and I agreed to terms that they requested without understanding that it did not make financial sense. So that's what happened there. And it ended up working out all right. The clients actually are talking with me about doing their second home. So they understood, and I think they knew that they had put me in an unfair position once I stood up for myself and pointed it out.
Well, and I think the important thing too is, as an owner of a business, if you don't have that financial knowledge, you need to get it. And it doesn't matter if it's better if it's somebody in the industry, because if somebody is in the industry, they know how to charge, they know what the standards are, what the benchmarks are. And in this particular case, it was so clear to me that this person was taking advantage of you. And I'm kind of like mama bear, because I don't want my clients to be losing money, because I'll never forget the very first person that essentially encouraged me to, or I came up with the idea of doing a VIP day for her over 8 years ago. She said, I just don't understand my financials. And so I met with her. I was actually up in Washington, D.C., meeting with ASID. And I said, well, I can come in a day early and I'll meet with you. And I looked at her financials and I just told her, I said, you know what? I am so glad you called, because you're about 6 weeks away from running out of cash. And so she was in a really bad situation. And today she has over $1 million business a year. and she is doing extremely well, and she is profitable, and she's making good money and paying for kids, school, private school. And so, it's really about understanding that the money is a huge driver for the results that you need to do or have, because you as an owner, like you're primary breadwinner. So you want to be bringing in enough money to pay for your kids' college. You've got little ones right now, but those years kind of creep up quickly, don't they?
They do. They already have. We lost our first tooth in our house this week. So.
Oh dear, that's a big one.
I have a 6-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. So time's flying.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what were some of the things that you were looking for help with when you were considering hiring?
Financials is number one. What I needed to know was, can I actually make this work? Did I make a terrible mistake by starting a business? I mean, maybe I'm not cut out for it. There was a lot of kind of self-doubt going there, yet I had clients, and I had a lot of clients and a lot of work and good projects, but it just seemed like I was always having cash flow issues, where now I've identified why, and a lot of it has to do, spoiler alert, with billing on time. But I think that the financials are the number one reason. I wanted to know, does this make sense? Am I actually going to be able to make a living doing this for a number of years, and how do I do that? The other reason was that I knew I needed to grow, because I had work coming in, but I didn't know who to hire, how much I was supposed to pay them. It was all unknown. The whole HR kind of territory of being a boss was new to me. So having somebody kind of say, okay, here's the going rate for this position, and this is the position you should hire for next, and here's why. And frankly, it was not what I would have hired for. I would have thought, oh, I need an assistant. And that wasn't the case. I needed somebody with a little bit more experience to save me from training time. So it was really great to have somebody look at it from the 50,000-foot view and give me a bird's eye view, having talked with countless people who were in my exact position. Because the reality is we start our business and it's just us and we're doing everything. And then in order to grow, we need to figure out who's our next hire and what tasks do we pass off and how does that work? So having somebody who's done that before with other people was really helpful, because they can say, oh, no, here's what you want to do and here's what works. So that was another reason, was growth, financials and growth.
Yeah, growth is a big deal. So let's talk about that. What are some of the goals for your business? And what have you accomplished in terms of growth since you started?
Well, I started working with you, Gail, last June, I think it was. Last summer.
Uh-huh.
So it's been just over a year. And I currently have 5 desks in my office where we have 2 employees, myself included. So I am set to grow. COVID put a little bit of a damper on things. I actually put out an advertisement for a business manager in March, right before everything shut down, and then quickly pulled it because we realized it was not the time to grow. Everything was so unknown then. Since then, we've gotten even more projects coming in, and we're drinking from a fire hose right now is the most eloquent way to say it. So what we need instead of a business manager is another senior designer. So we currently have 1 senior designer. We're looking to hire a 2nd senior designer, and then a business manager or a junior. I'm not sure which one yet. We have to kind of see how things shake out and see what Gail tells me to do after this is in place. But I have 5 desks available for 2 senior designers, a business manager, a junior designer, and myself. So stage is set. We just need tushies to put in those seats.
Well, and that's one of the really cool things that is, you're ready for it. And we talked about it quite a bit about, was it right to take back that space that you were subletting? And we talked about the growth, because you're in a really great position where you are going to grow, but you have to know when to hire, and you have to know when to make those investments. And that's one of the reasons I think it's so important to have somebody guiding you so that you don't overspend and you don't get yourself in a cash flow problem. But one thing that's really cool about it is that we have clients that are making multiple 6 figures, and we have a few that are making 7 figures, like over $1 million in income for themselves. And so for our clients, that didn't happen overnight. And there is a progression about the way you build your business. And I've been in the business for a long time. So for me, it's just more of, there's a lot of logic, and then there's just a gut feeling sometimes about when it's right. And sometimes that's a very fine line between the two. So what are some of the things that you have done that you would not have done on your own since you've been going through coaching?
I would have been really hesitant to take on the rest of my office space. So before I hired Gail, I got rid of part of my office space thinking my overhead was too high and I needed to, skinny down, get lean and mean, which was right for me at the time. And it was a good move. But then the rest of this office space became available again when COVID hit, and the business that had the other half of my building went virtual, and I had the opportunity to take it over. And I probably would have not done that if I hadn't had Gail looking at my financials going, no, you can afford it, so you should do it. So then you've got everything in place, so you're poised to grow. That's probably a leap of faith I wouldn't have taken just because I was so scared. Everything with COVID was so unknown, and none of us had a crystal ball to see where we were going. And all of our own individual financial situations are so different. I will say that since working with Gail and her team, I used to check my bank account for the business like every morning when I'd wake up. It would almost be like a panic, like I just got to make sure it's okay kind of thing. I don't do that anymore. It's not even a thought in my head because I know I'm okay. And that is such a load off. The stress of not having to do that has been so nice. And I know I'm not directly answering your question.
That's all right.
On a tangent there. But I guess the point is that being able to take that financial risk, if you will, although it was a well-calculated one and it was more of an investment in the growth that we have coming, was something that I needed somebody to look at my financials and say, no, you can afford this. It's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I needed it because our old space, there was not room for another body in that space. There was just room for 2 of us, and we were even a little crammed.
Yeah.
So we've got room for 5 of us, and maybe even a 6th if we get creative. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's about $1.5 million of revenue. So you've got room for growth, and it's going to be very positively good growth, and it's going to be profitable growth. So that's the important thing. And I really drill that into everybody's heads at retreats and as often as possible, because that's really important to be thinking about what is it you need to be having bottom line, because the top line's great. It's nice to have $1 million+ business, but you really need to care about what your bottom line is. And that takes more than just knowing how to price. You have to know a lot of other things to control that as well. Right, Jody?
Right. Yep. Absolutely. I think that that's part of the reason that we hired a senior designer instead of a business manager, because we can bill them. They're billable. They're not an overhead expense. Mm-hmm. And when we have the work to keep them busy, then it's a no-brainer. But again, that's not something I would have thought of. I actually did assume I needed a junior designer because I was so busy with my project. I thought we needed support staff. I had a call with Gail and I was like, okay, I'm ready to hire. I've got my thing ready for a junior designer. My whole advertisement, I just need you to tell me to hit go. And she was like, can we just pump the brakes for a second? Why a junior? And then we had the conversation. And by the end of my 30-minute call, I was like, okay, change of plans. We're hiring a senior. So again, it's just somebody who's done this before, saving me from mistakes that they've probably been made 1 million times over in our industry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty common.
Yeah. You think you need help, so you hire help, but really what you need is more capable help.
Well, yeah, and it's really, there's a lot of, like we talked about a second ago, it's logic, but there's also there's that gut feeling sometimes. And just for example, with you, I could tell from day one when you came in and started working with me, I thought this person is a little superstar. So she's going to do great. And she has this really great knack for having, she's got a personality that draws people in, and she's very friendly, and that really helps her get business. And ironically, she's in where I live, and she knows a lot of the people I know. So when she told me who some of her clients were, I was absolutely shocked and impressed. And so that's one of the keys that I think is so important for everybody listening, is the likability factor is huge in getting your business to grow. You got to have some talent, but you've got to be likable too.
Oh, thank you, Gail. That's very kind.
Of course.
Also, having a coach is nice because they're good for your self-esteem.
That's part of it. We're your cheerleaders too.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, you're also in one of our boardrooms, which is a mastermind group for $1 million plus companies. So how does that help and support you?
So when I was driving in this morning, sipping my tea and thinking about the two biggest benefits I see to having a coach, the mastermind group was one of the top two. The reason is, and I don't know if any of you, the rest of you out there find this, but in design, we seem to protect our ideas and our assets. We protect them because we're afraid. It's like a scarcity concept. We're afraid to share our ideas or our resources because we want to make sure that we've got it all. There's this almost like a hoarding effect, and I think it stems from a fear of not having enough work or being in competition with one another. I went to the Genius Exchange last July, and I had my VIP day 30 days before that. So I was really new to the whole Gail Doby group. And I was blown away at the Genius Exchange by the number of people there who were openly sharing. And when I looked around, I realized they were all part of Gail's group. They were all boardroom members, and they were sitting sharing with us the details of how they run their business. I mean, right down to, oh yeah, I'll send you that document, no problem. Whether it was an onboarding thing or their contract or a resource for where they find X, Y, and Z, I was flabbergasted because I've never experienced that before. I've experienced the opposite, where it's this, let me shelter it and not tell you where I found this great antique store or, my favorite places to shop when I'm, at Round Top. I was really stunned. So, right down to some people don't even want to share their photographer. So what I realized was that, man, these people must be really secure and confident in not only who they are, but in their business and its position to be willing to share all of this information that would otherwise be considered proprietary. And that was kind of an eye-opening moment for me, and not only validated like, okay, you're doing the right thing, because if these people have been working with Gail and they're so well positioned that they're willing to basically share whatever you need so that you can join them at the head table as well, then that means that they're all doing something right. And I think the reality is that there is enough to go around, and the table is big enough, and we can always add leaves to it. The mastermind group just has continued that for me. It's a group of people. It happens to be all women in our group, just by a fluke. But we're a group of women where whether you've got a question, big or small, difficult clients, not sure how to bill, need a resource for something, have an employee issue, whatever it is, they're there, and quickly with responses, with advice or backup. Or if I say, hey, I need a senior designer job description, does anybody have one? I'll get 3 replies with them within the hour of, yep, here's mine, no problem. It just saved me so much time. Mm-hmm. Just why reinvent the wheel when somebody's already done it and they're willing to help? So absolutely the mastermind group for me. And also it's camaraderie. They're doing the same thing that I'm doing, running a business and trying to do it with some degree of grace and success, while also trying to have a personal life and be a spouse and oftentimes a mother and, all of these other roles that we try to play. So we talk a lot about life balance too, just among the group, because it's challenging. We all have things going on.
Yeah, it's definitely very challenging right now with COVID, but that's the thing that I think is so important is that boardroom group, and we're just getting ready to start our 5th one. And it's really about having other people that you can depend on and that you can trust, that are friendly and caring, and it's lifetime friendships that is what comes out of being in boardroom. Because to me, it's all about once you really share those tender moments and you have those teary moments, and we all do, and it happens in the boardroom. I even cry sometimes, and it's really cool to watch it because everybody's there and there to support and will give you whatever you need, because they've been there too, and they understand how hard it is to run the business. So yeah.
And we all become invested in our employees and our clients. And when things go sour, which, sometimes they do, it's just the way of the world. It's nice to have a sympathetic shoulder who actually gets it and has often been there themselves. My husband is not in the design industry. And so oftentimes when I'm talking to him, he gets it because he's a business-minded person. But our industry is so specific that having somebody who really understands is just, it's invaluable.
So what are some of the challenges you've overcome so far?
I'm sure there are loads of them. Let me think about specifically. Well, I mean, cash flow is, I think we've already talked about the financial challenges that are no longer growth, not knowing who to hire, when to hire. That has certainly, I think we're on a good path there. Taxes. Oh, I got hit with taxes my second year in business. The first year was okay because I was new. And then the second year when it caught up, my CPA was not, I think, anticipating how much I was going to sell. I got nailed with taxes. And since then we've gotten on, I have a new CPA, thanks to Gail. And we've gotten on a good tax plan. So that was a big challenge because it was the scaries, the tax time scaries, where it was like, oh, what's it gonna be? I have no idea how much I'm gonna owe. It was kind of like a tax roulette kind of moment.
Yeah, right.
But now knowing I know where I stand, likely what I'm gonna owe next year and what I've already paid in, so what I'm going to owe. So it's just, it feels less intimidating. It's almost like we pulled the mask off of some of the scaries.
Mm-hmm.
Other challenges, charging clients for my time. I was not billing for all of my time. I was relying solely on the markup of furniture instead of billing the time to pull the furniture. And as we all know, sometimes furniture falls through and then I'd be left with nothing to show for it. So overcoming that challenge has been great for cash flow and, how I interact with clients. They've been really understanding with me saying, this is how I'm going to do things now. And even existing clients who I've worked with for 8 years, saying, got to raise my rates. They get it, and I think that we're scared a lot of times to rock the boat with our clients, especially ones we've known for years, because we don't want to disappoint them or damage that relationship because, relationships above all else in our industry are what we rely on. So going to them and saying, hi, I've worked with you for 8 years now, and I'm finally going to raise my rates. You feel a little apologetic doing it, but the fact is that their hairstylist probably raised his or her rates 4 times in the past 8 years. And they're used to it. If you just talk about it as a matter of business, it's well received. So that was another challenge that I overcame was asking for what was fair for an hourly rate and for how I bill.
Yeah, it makes a big difference to do that for sure. So do you think that shortened your learning curve to have help?
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. I mean, it was, there's you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. I was a child for that. My face is on the billboard. That basically sums it up. I did not know what I didn't know until I didn't know it. And then it's like, oh, if I had only known that 3 months ago, it's the hiring thing all over again. I would have hired a junior designer by now. If Gail hadn't told me, 2 weeks ago, don't hire a junior, hire a senior. It's absolutely shortened my learning curve.
All right. Well, for some people who are thinking about hiring a coach, what should they be thinking about? What questions should they ask? What are some things that you'd guide them with?
I would ask about time commitment during the week. I definitely do devote some time to coaching. So I think about it like a personal trainer, and I'm sure this is an analogy you've all heard before. And if you haven't, then I'll be the first to introduce you to it. But, when you go in for personal training, they assess where you are, they talk with you about where you want to go, what weak spots you might have. It's a lot like that with a coach. So when I started working with Gail and her team, they assessed where I am, the state of the union, if you will, with the business. Asked me where I wanted to go. Like, what are your goals? Are you trying to have a team of 20, a team of 5, a team of 2? What are your financial goals for personally and for your business? And, how do they marry? So they, assessing the situation and then coming up with a game plan. So if you're a personal trainer, they might say, you need to get this number of steps each day, drink this amount of water, exercise this many number of times a week. And here's really what your fitness goals are. And then they check in regularly. So coaching is a lot like that because, Gail and her team gave us a game plan, gave me a game plan. And then we have weekly check-ins where I check in with Gail and her team online and say, hey, here's what I've accomplished this week. And that accountability, much like with personal training, it keeps you on task. So it reminds you of what your goals are and why you want to accomplish them. I think that it is a bit of a time investment. It's worth it, much like personal training is, and going to the gym is a time investment, but it's something that you just have to make a priority. So I would say, make sure that you're setting aside time to actually devote to implementing the advice that you're paying money to get. Much like personal training, you don't want to pay for an hour and then show up 15 minutes late. You're paying for those 15 minutes, so why not use them all?
Mm-hmm.
So coaching is like that in the sense that I would say make sure you're accounting for the time that you'd spend. And I would say I spend probably at least an hour a week, maybe 2 hours. If I'm, I try to do some on Mondays, some on Fridays, and then we do have monthly check-ins with the group. And then I have coaching with Gail as well. But it's important because it keeps you on your path and reminds you of what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to prepare for it too. And that's one of the things that I know for a fact that the people that come ready on time and have questions ready for me, they're going to get the most out of their sessions. So and I'm totally fine with coaching people and coming up with a topic because there's always something that I know somebody needs, but I feel like it's a two-way street. So when you come prepared and hey, I'm having a problem with this client, I need some help with this, or how do I price this, or what do I do on this financial decision? Having that thought out prior to coming into your coaching session is crucial because you're going to get more out of it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're more eloquent than I am. So you said that better, but that's what I mean.
Yeah, well, one thing too that I think is important too is as you're starting to look at the kind of work that you want to do with somebody is to find out, of course, what is it going to cost to do it? But the other part is, what are you going to get back in return? Because to me, it's all about return on investment. It's not about the expense. Yes, it's expensive to coach with somebody because you're getting somebody's expertise they've built up for years. But on the other side, you should be getting back multiples of what you put into it as you work with somebody. And that's something that we really focus on because we want to make sure that we're not an expense for somebody.
Right. Yeah. There's got to be value. And certainly there's value. I mean, even just with what we talked about with saving time and not having to recreate documents, having that senior designer job description already typed up and I can modify it to suit our needs. I could have spent 2 hours typing it. And instead I got one in 10 minutes, so even just the time it saves me there's definitely monetary value to be found in that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, saving time is all about what we need to do to have some life balance too.
Mm-hmm.
You've got two little kids, so keeping up with 2 little kids in addition to work is not so easy.
Yeah, that's another thing I didn't even think about really, but my weekends have become mine again. I spent a lot of weekends working before I had help and before I had coaching. I don't spend many weekends working. I'll do billing on the weekends and I'll plug in occasionally to do something if we've got like a deadline that I'm scrambling for. But for the most part, I've got my weekends back, which my family appreciates.
I'm sure they do. And you too. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what are some of the changes that you've experienced as we've gone through COVID?
Clients are shopping online a lot, I've noticed, and that's been really challenging. Obviously, meeting in person has become different. And for a while, we weren't meeting in person at all. So we got really, really good at meeting via Zoom, doing screen shares, talking clients through things, dropping off packages of samples or mailing packages of samples prior to the meeting and having everything labeled. So we could say, okay, now if you'll pull out fabric bundle number 1, or one labeled living room, you'll see on top fabric number 1 is, and so we had them all labeled to walk them through presentations. we just had to get kind of creative with how we did it just to keep things moving forward. Thankfully, in the state of Colorado, construction was considered a critical industry, so we did not hit delays in construction, so job sites kept moving. But I think that clients are unpredictable right now, would be the best way I could say it. I found that what you thought a project was going to be maybe is not what it's going to be anymore. It's changed a bit. You know, their scope of work changed, or they were working on their master suite and now they've added on the office, or, you know, they're not going to do the bedroom. They're just going to remodel the bathroom, leave the bedroom as is in lieu of getting new furniture for their office because they're working from home. So the world has changed and the client's needs are changing along with it. I just wish that clients weren't quite so wishy-washy right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's challenging.
A little fickle and a little wishy-washy for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so it takes a lot of flexibility to deal with that and to plan for that.
Right.
So, yeah,
of course we can do that. No problem. Even if it is a problem, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, while we're starting to wrap up on this, I want everybody who's listening to go ahead and pop in some questions for us. We'd be happy to answer those, and feel free to give us some questions specifically for Jody. I'll share those with her, and I'm going to just make sure I've got Q&A up so I can see if there's anything there. Okay, great. So Kimberly had asked me to share just a little bit too about how some of the coaching has helped our other clients take their business to the next level. And I had one that came up this week. I did a coaching session with a client who's been, I think she started about 7 years ago with me. And at the time she was making in the low 200s in terms of revenue. So she wasn't making a whole lot of money. And I was talking to her this week, and she just is totally so swamped. She can't even keep up with it. And she's having to turn away business. And so I asked her where she's going to end up the year, and she's going to end up the year at 10 times where she started 7 years ago. And so I was asking her the question. I said, okay, so what made the difference for you? What is it that really got all of this business coming in? Because she's getting inundated with calls. And she said, well, I did some of the marketing that you recommended, which is she picked 10 realtors, 10 builders, and 10 contractors or architects that she's working with. And she has worked really hard for the last 4 or 5 years building relationships. And now she has a steady flow of referrals from these people. And so now we were actually talking about the fact that she's out of capacity in her office. She's going to have to make a decision somewhere in the next year or so to upgrade her office. And she'd just gotten in this office a few years ago. And now she's got to add on because she's going to continue to grow. So she will be a multi-million-dollar business, and she's in the group right before your boardroom. She's the boardroom 3, and she's just doing an amazing job. But you know, that's just one of many of our great stories that we've seen, and it's really fun to watch our clients go through these radical changes. And Jody, you were talking about this a little bit. You saw these people at our Genius Exchange, which is our summertime event. This is where everybody comes together from all of our different groups. And it's just a really fun time. This year we had to do it virtually, and we will in 2021 as well. But it's just such a cool group of people because they've had such success, some of these people, and they are just blowing my mind at how much they have grown over time. And it's really because they have had this support group of people either through Genius Exchange or Boardroom or our Alliance group, plus, you know, VIP and all that. But it's just an important part of growth is having other people who have been on that journey before you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And connecting with industry partners has served us well too during this time of COVID. Mm-hmm. I definitely rely on referrals from contractors who I've worked with who now many times when they're meeting with clients, they'll even say, you don't have a designer, you're gonna need one, and here's who we'd recommend. Architects, I reached out to 2 architects who I wanted to work with during quarantine, and one of them just referred us for a job. And the other one has referred us for 5 jobs since then, 4 of which we've gotten. So it's definitely been energy and money well spent to connect with those industry partners. There's one realtor that I've touched base with, and I haven't gotten anything out of that yet, but it sounds like I need to do more based on your other person.
Yeah. Well, it's just like the realtor that we had lunch with.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And over time, it took me 3 years to get business from her. So
Yeah.
it takes time.
And I think it's just people hearing your name from, their might be from their architect, and then hearing your name from the AV guy they're talking to, and hearing your name from, the builder. Once they start hearing your name over and over again, it's like, oh, geez, this person's really well connected within the industry. They're established. They have a good reputation. I think it's about maintaining those connections, which I happen to love to do. I always joke with Gail. I'm like, I'm not doing any marketing. I'm not doing any networking. And then I realize I do it without. Yeah, I do it all the time. I'm not doing it intentionally. I just like to talk to people. So I talk to people and it works out.
Well, that likability factor. And so being able to have people just really enjoy you. And of course, you're a lot of fun and you're funny. So that makes it even better. So yeah, I think those are for anybody listening. Yeah, just think about how you can use that in your business, because that's a real asset. And then other than that, it's just really decide what you want to do with your life and your business, and understand that those two things are intertwined. You cannot ignore the fact that those two are so important together, and you can't just work on your business without thinking about how it's going to affect you personally.
Yeah, I think time is one of the things too that I would see as a huge asset in working with the coaches, that I've gotten time back. And a lot of people, and I'm just thinking about what I would have said, which is, I don't have time to do any marketing. I don't have time to do, this and that, because I'm so busy just handling my own design projects. I'm drowning. And that is one of those, I think, common complaints of a small business, because you wear too many hats. So then having somebody help you realize how to get some of that time back, so that you can focus on marketing and growing your business and evaluating your financials. That's been a huge asset for me. I mean, time is our most valuable asset, as we always say.
It is. Yeah. And the other thing too, and I think this is so important. I've had people come to me who are wanting coaching, and again, tears happen a lot. And the tears happen because people are really stressed out, and they need somebody to talk to that really understands their situation, can help them with it. And I remember the story of one of our charter boardroom members, and we were just starting. She had just done her VIP day. And in the middle of the VIP day, she was saying, I don't know if I want to do this business anymore. She was just in tears over it. And here she is today, still there. She is still building her business, and she's loving it. And she is still in the charter boardroom, and, again, lifetime friendships with them. And so she has really changed her attitude about what she wants in her life. And she's loving her business. And she understands that it's all about building the right team, and it's understanding your financials and making those work for you so that you can achieve your personal financial goals. And this is another person who is not in your boardroom, Jody, but Becky Chartrand, right? Yeah. And Becky is another great story with her. She came to me in 2014. And she signed up for our program, where we did 2 VIP days in a year at that time, which was a lot, but it was really helpful for her. And she was really in kind of a really frustrating spot for herself. She was making about the median income for a designer, and really didn't have savings. And her husband also had a job, and he didn't have savings. And she was so stressed out about their financial future. And I remember telling her one day, Becky, part of what you need to learn is the financials. And once you do that and start building reserves, then you're going to be in a position where, if something, God forbid, happens, where you get sick, or maybe something happens where you're on vacation for several weeks, you want to be able to have reserves so that you can keep your business rolling. And sure enough, about a year and a half, 2 years later, she ended up almost not living. she was in, she had a really severe life-threatening situation. She was able to keep her company afloat. She could still pay herself. She paid all of her team, and she had money left over after she came back to work. And today she's, you know, done quite well. She's in boardroom as well. But at the time when she came to us, she had no money in savings, and it was a real leap of faith to go through coaching. And by the end of, I think it was about 9 months, she had 100,000 in the bank in reserves. So that was really important for her because, and today she's on track for her personal financial goals. And that is such a fabulous thing to see, especially as a coach, because you want to see people hit that level of financial success, because that's what you're in business for, is to make money, right?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, we all need to account for the fact that we don't want to work for the rest of our lives. So
not. Yeah. All right. Well, I was going to share with you all, I think unless you have some questions for us, we're going to share a toolkit that I've put together for you. It's called Profit and Pricing Toolkit. And it's going to talk to you a little bit about pricing and some of the mistakes designers make. It also has a calculator that you can use. It's free. It's something that took months of work to put together, but it will help you put together your pricing for your projects. And it's something that you can use in about 15 minutes to get a good cost estimate together for your client projects. And we have an ideal client profile in there, which we feel like is a foundational tool that you need to have, and you need to look at least once every year or so. And then we have a video that teaches you how to use that, that calculator. So it's all very fun stuff, and it's free. And I think, Mackenzie, are you showing that on the screen? I'm not seeing that yet. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen with that? And it's also, by the way, if you want to look up in the chat, it is also there as well. So if you have your cell phone with you, all you need to do is pull out your camera and take a picture of that, and you'll be able to get immediate access to all those free tools that we shared with you. So does anybody have any questions at this point? Go ahead and type those into either chat or to the Q&A. That would be just great. So Jody, any other words of advice that you'd like to share?
I think that the two big things are, you know, get your personal trainer for your business. You won't regret it. And find that group of people who are your network and your support system. For me, that happened to be going through Gail. But I know everybody's situation looks different. I will say that when Gail, I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I was looking at hiring a coach, I was like, I can't afford it. I don't have any money. And I'm exaggerating when I say I spent my last dollar, but I'm not exaggerating by much. And it has paid off immensely. I mean, it's been such an asset to me financially just to have a coach, and my bank account has never looked better. And my stress levels surrounding the business is as low as it could possibly be. The only time I feel stressed about the business is with client challenges, which we're always going to have. So if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling uncertain, if you're feeling alone, then I would definitely say find a coach, find a network of people who can support you, who actually know what they're talking about. Make sure they're people who know what they're talking about. Because it really, yeah.
Or both. It really helps to have both. But yeah, and we're not the right coach for everybody, and we know that, and we're not inexpensive, but our goal is, like I said, to make sure that you're making money back for every dollar you spend for us. We want you to make more than that. So that's the real challenge.
And I'd be shocked if any of your clients weren't.
Oh yeah. As long as they do the work, they're going to get it back multiple times over. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jody, for taking the time today. And Kimberly, thank you for having us on today for IMC. And for all of you attending, enjoy the toolkit. I'm sure it'll be quite helpful to you. and let us know if there's anything we can do.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. See you later.